I am so excited to welcome back to Direction, Not Perfection, confidence coach Trish Blackwell. Trish helps women who struggle with perfectionism, self-doubt, the self-critical voice. Trish is the host of the Confidence Podcast, where she teaches women how to confidently live and courageously live as the women that God created them to be. Welcome back, Trish.
Lindsey, thank you. So happy to be here.
I have been dying for this moment. And I was looking back the last time we got on mic together. I was at episode 84. I think that was like 3 to 4 years ago. Crazy.
No, was it really that long ago?
We were talking about forward as a pace, and I still steal that to this day. So thanks for that.
It's crazy. It doesn't feel like that long.
It really doesn't.
There's a sisterhood in our smiles, though. I feel connected to you with the smile. We both have big smiles. I feel like if we were next door neighbors, life would be really good.
Is that an option? Can we do that?
Is it an option? I don't know. It'd be great. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I love it. I was just going to tell you, I was listening to your micro actions episode, and you're celebrating 11 years of podcasting. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. It's nuts, right?
It is. And you're my hero. And you also give me inspiration that we get to keep going. Like there's not a stopping point.
There's not a stopping point. And what's really cool is that very rarely go back and listen to myself, but now my kids are starting to ask. We were in the car the other day. I was listening to a podcast and my 6-year-old said, "Hey, can people listen to you in the car?" And I went, "I don't know." And I put it on. No reaction. And I went, "Do you guys see who's on the screen?" And they were like, "Yeah." They hadn't seen like my cover art. And then I go, who is this? I guess I have a podcast voice that's different than my mom voice. And I actually had to turn around and go, "Baker, it's me. This is me. This is my show." But anyways, it's interesting to go back. And I actually have gone back into the notes of some of my previous shows. And I love to see my growth, but also fresh perspective. Things that way I was thinking about things 5 years ago, I think differently about now, but it doesn't negate the power or value of what was there. It's refreshing to go back, and I just love being able to see that, how God changes our mind, how our brains are transforming, how there's so much that we are learning and growing, and how many different ways to apply it there are.
Oh my goodness, I agree. And then I also love, and I think that you'd find this too, going back and you're like, no, I'm still really talking about the same. I still have same passion, same messaging.
I am not changed by, same thing. Yeah. And a million ways to talk about.
Exactly, which is so great, which is what we're going to do today, because Lord knows I always talk about little by little, a little becomes a lot. And you've been using this word micro a lot, micro actions, micro milestones. So we're going to weave that in. And if you don't care, I'm going to take 2 seconds to read a little email blurb that you wrote the other day.
Yes.
Because it really ties into how I'm just so excited for you to speak over my community. So you said that high achieving women wired to do, and that there's some fatal mistakes that can come along with that and sabotage our overall results. And just some of those examples are not celebrating our success, in particular, our micro milestones, being reluctant to pat themselves on the back for success, neglecting to create margin in the day, doing too much, spreading ourselves too thin, procrastinating on sleep. I was just like, oh, this is so good. And that's when I emailed you, and I was like,
yes.
Jump back.
Oh, good to know that email resonated. Yeah. Okay. So this concept of micro anything, it makes success so available. And this goes with any goal, whether it's a business goal, a financial goal, a weight loss goal. I just want to find that perfect rhythm for my life. When we get overwhelmed, we shut down. And you go, everything we need to do is just to keep moving forward. Going back to our conversation, forward is a pace. So if forward is a pace, and I really need to take one step in front of the other, the only thing that keeps me from doing that, what delays me, what distracts me, what derails me, and what actually stops me is the overwhelm, is the thinking, is the overwhelm. Often could be just, I have too much to do, I don't have time for this, or it's, I'm so far away from my goal, what's the point? Or there's also overwhelm of perspective. I think sometimes we go, well, it doesn't really matter. We convince ourselves like a sleazy salesman to be like, well, it doesn't really matter. You really don't need to go to sleep on time tonight. Losing sight of what matters, overwhelm and looking and getting distracted. And so I really, really like the idea of just micro moments, micro milestones, micro thoughts, micro shifts. Because I think sometimes, especially if you're like, all right, I'm here, I'm at point A and I want to get to point B. And you're like, I want to know, I want somebody to tell me the exact massive changes I need to make in my life. And then it'll be simple and I can check the box. I'm a check the box girl. The route to success is micro shifts. And so to go, okay, so we want to speak, especially if you have a driven personality where you go, I just want to be sure I'm in the right direction. I think the micro concept is like, we are just making constant micro adjustments. That is the key to success. And we do that by catching little thoughts. We do that through micro habits, because I think we can overwhelm ourselves with going, all right, well, I'm going to do 15 minutes of stretching in the morning, as well as 15 minutes abs. And then I'm going to go for my hour and a half workout plus this. And somehow magically the kids are getting themselves ready for school. And on the school bus, we have this really glorified, like, well, I can be this successful and do all of the things when I have 36 hours in the day. Like, I'll journal when. So I found that like in my years of coaching, which is now, oh gosh, we're at 12 years of coaching, the best way to get results. And this was before, and for those of you who don't know, I was a personal trainer for 12 years before I started like my life coaching and confidence coaching practice. So 20 years now, which is weird to say, of working with people to create change in their life. And the people who make change are the ones who just go, I can commit for 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes. And if you can work with your 5 minutes in such a micro amount, all of a sudden you're like, well, 5 minutes times 7 days of the week is 35 minutes. That creates some change. If you have 5 minutes to journal every day, that's actually over a half hour per week that you're saying you don't have the time for, but you can benefit so deeply. So I look at my life in chunks of 2 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 minutes. I decided that my morning routine is I do 2 minutes of stretching, 2 minutes of abs in the morning. I do 8 minutes of journaling. I'm trying to work my way up to 3 minutes. I do 2 minutes of stretching at night. But if I look at it cumulatively, I want to be in my 70s and flexible. I got 30 years to go. But if I do 2 minutes, I mean, it's every single day for the next 30 years is going to make me that 70-something-year-old lady running marathons and people going, well, how is she so able to do this? Let's even just fast forward 80s. I want to do it in my 80s. I want to snowboard in my 80s. If I got to do that, I got to do 2 minutes here. So it just makes it more, I feel like it just makes it so much more doable.
I agree. And I just feel that the ripple effect that happens from the micro steps, the micro actions that people are taking, we can't see what that ripple is going to look like necessarily. It's like the faith in the process that, oh, that stretching at night and all of a sudden maybe you have a better night's sleep or your body feels better the next day, that it's hard for people to settle into that. And you had made mention of this and I loved it, that there's no such thing as wasted effort.
Yes.
And that a lot of us stop digging before we hit gold.
We stop often. We work so hard and then we're so focused on the destination. We're so focused on the achievement. We don't realize that success is actually comes in the course correction along the way, the little chunks that we're committing. It's compound interest. If you look at how wealthy people get wealthy, it's from investing money. Money makes money, but it's little by little and it compounds upon itself. And the same thing, time is just like money. Time is an asset that we use. And so knowing that often people invest time, and they go, I'll stop because it's not working. And so we have to fight our brain on the it's not working. I really think one of the most pivotal power phrases you can say and speak over yourself is everything's working. Everything is working. I'm on my way. You can do this in weight loss. You can do this in business. You can do this if you're dating in the wild west of dating. That's the online dating. And just, everything is working. This matters. And there is no such thing as wasted effort. There is no such thing because no matter what, my effort will always pay off, whether it's going to go in the direct path, I think now, or an indirect path as well. It's interesting. If you haven't yet watched it, the new movie, there's a Netflix documentary on Diana Nyad on Netflix. And she is the woman who swam from Cuba to the Florida Keys. And so 108 miles, you can read the description and you'll know this. This is not a spoiler. At 65 years old, she did it. What is amazing about this, there's been multiple people who have tried that. No one but her has succeeded. But even better, she started this journey. She tried when she was 28 years old. She was an elite swimmer. And this was a childhood dream. It's a swim of about 60 hours straight. Not allowed to touch a boat, not allowed to get help. There's sharks, all the things. And she failed. And they got tons of media coverage. Public failure. She takes a break. She doesn't swim for 30 years. And when she turns 60, she goes, I'm doing it. And she fails 3 more times. And then she does it at 65. I'm like, oh my gosh. And what's beautiful about it, it's like first message, you were never too old. And when we're in our 60s, we need to tell our brains we are more capable of than things that we were doing in our 20s. Getting back to the point of our conversation is the difference. There is a boat that swims alongside her. And she's an expert who is constantly routing. And at the end, you can look at each one of her swim efforts from Cuba to Florida had a different route because of the current and the wind and the weather and the things. The successful one was when they course corrected correctly and stayed so dialed in, so focused. And these were expert, I don't know what you call boat captains, right? Navigators. And every effort that she had made previous that failed was not wasted. It's just an absolute fascinating story of grit and effort. And that effort, even when it looks like massive failure, still isn't wasted, even potentially decades later. I think maybe there's somebody that needs to hear that, hey, I started writing a book two decades ago. Okay, pick it back up. And it's like we were talking at Ford was the pace. I probably was talking my story of the Chicago Marathon where every step forward counts. It feels like if you're trying to go 26 miles, one step doesn't matter, but we have to just pull back the dial. One step forward in a journey of 26 miles absolutely does matter. And it's a slow journey. We've got to sometimes accept that, but you're on your way.
Oh, I have chills this whole time you're talking for so many reasons. And you're right. That story just resonates in so many different ways.
It's so
and
good.
I just want to even pull it back to our listeners of like stopping before we hit gold, because obviously that woman, if she would have stopped at the first, second, or third failure, she never would have seen her success. And I think that happens all the time in weight loss and in our fitness journey, our nutrition, because the scale can throw us off because we have other external measurements that might not be adding up to what we think our efforts should have made a difference on. Then all of a sudden we stop. And it's like, how do you keep getting people to push through till they hit gold moment?
I think that's what I think is so beautiful. I think if we can resonate, it's who we think of ourselves. In my coaching practice, I call it your self-concept. If you can self-identify as somebody who has grit or as somebody who has belief, call it faith, call it what you want, then you will have the courage to try something that you've failed at and pick it back up. And having been in the fitness industry myself and having a lot of time with people who want to lose weight or have fitness goals. But the number one thing I heard and still hear sometimes is, yeah, but I already tried that. So did I. And I go swim for 30 hours straight, then fail, train for a year and try it. Just because it didn't work for me before doesn't mean it won't work for me now. We get beaten down by the diet industry. We get worn down with past efforts. And sometimes we need to look and go, did I have all the information I needed? And did I really go all in? Sometimes we go kind of in. We're like, but I'm trying this. But if you don't believe that it's going to work when you're doing it, you're not all in. I mean, it's such a fine line. In fact, I have a client right now. We're doing business goals, but one of hers is also a fitness goal. And we just had this conversation. And there was a program that had worked for her, and then it hadn't. And now it is. What she and I are doing together is. And I said, tell me what the difference is. And she said, this time I'm just believing what you're telling me that it's working. That's it. And it's crazy that one thought can change your results, but she actually believes it's going to work. But there's this fear, the fear of like, well, what if I believe? And then I'm really disappointed if it doesn't. But like, we can't even entertain that. We have to stay in micro moments and go, today, I'm going to believe this is working for me.
Right. And you can tell I like binge on your episodes, but even in the dating world where there was a flip of your switch where you're like, I believe there's somebody out there for me, where that belief system wasn't in place at one point. Exactly. And then the world opened, right?
The world opens. It's amazing. I like power phrases that we can speak over ourselves, because that's like, just say, I'm going to keep digging. Takes 5 seconds, or even just saying to yourself, I'm on my way. And if you hear me say, yes, I want you to talk to yourself, I do. I want you to talk to yourself. And if that feels weird, text it to yourself. I encourage my clients all the time. Text yourself a power phrase, an affirmation, something you want to remember today, or just write it down. I'm on my way. This is working. Sometimes I can take all that balled up like anxiety and angst and fear and go, wait, it's working. This is going to work. I'm going to thrive today. I think sometimes when we're leaning in and we're like, I'm tired, I don't see the results yet. That's where the micro phrases that we can say to ourselves are so critical. And it's so critical to say this is still working. I will keep digging. That also the other micro that we haven't talked about is our micro losses. So you step on the scale and the scale doesn't move. It's so funny. We don't categorize our wins. We're like, oh, it's a small win. We're easy to be like, that wasn't really a big win. But a small loss, we're like, forget it. Nothing works. I give up. I'm meant to be big bone. And it was just maybe you're hormonal and you're retaining water. You ate too much sodium the night before. But if the scale doesn't move, we take it as a massive loss instead of a micro loss. And I think the key to a successful mind is knowing, wait, anyone who's successful has lost it. Think about the greatest athletes. Like Michael Jordan lost all the time. So it's not a problem. Losing, the scale not moving the way you want, your business thing not going the way you want, whatever it is, allow the space for disappointment and then call it a micro loss versus a massive. Because if it's a micro loss and you're supposed to collect little micro losses in order to get to the next stepping stone of success, then you're not as side railed by it.
Again, fabulous. I've never really thought about the micro loss and being as important. And then I want to just revisit, you mentioned like social media throwing us off, or society, and how your phrases, just to be able to throw them back at yourself, because I do think that's where we stop digging for the gold, is that we have great actions going and we see somebody else doing it, what we might think better or different. And then we're like, well, our way isn't working anymore. And that's where that hard stop happens. And then it takes way too long to get remotivated again.
Yep.
I appreciate you walking through that with us, that these are the moments, instead of falling off, that you insert.
Yeah. You insert a truth. The other thing, I think, when we're living in a world where we have two worlds, we have a real life and we have a virtual life. And so looking and knowing that we will be on social media, really curating your feed to only have people who inspire you. And to only have and to know your brain. When your brain gets tired, you might be somebody super positive, super inspirational that you're getting great tips from. And you're like, this is a person I want to keep in my feed. But maybe you find that at 9 p.m. at night or after, all of a sudden you start feeling a little jealous and a little discouraged by them. There's a dissonance between what they seem to achieve versus know yourself and just know my brain's tired. I know that I don't do well on social media after 9 p.m. My brain gets tired and I go from my Trish 2.0, who is this very confident, bold, just centered, joyful me, to Trish 1.0, who's like the me of like 2005, didn't know who she was, insecure, jealous. And it's so crazy. When my brain's tired, it's just not good for me to see social media. I sometimes say out loud, I can feel that some of the negative thinking come up, and I say out loud to yourself. So it's a pattern interruption. Because if you just go, oh, I'm a little tired, I probably shouldn't be on here, that's not going to get us to make a shift. We just say out loud, I think I'm too tired to be on social media in a healthy way. And you turn your phone off. You say it out loud, you pattern interrupt, and then you stop. And it's amazing that will protect you, because you might wake up the next day. If you had spent even 10 more minutes, the next morning, you might have been like, whatever. Or you might have gone, I don't know, open a bottle of wine just because you're feeling sorry for yourself. Mm-hmm. Easy to do. There's no judgment on those things. But if it doesn't align with your goals, we take action based on the thoughts we're thinking and the emotions we're feeling. And so when you feel your thoughts and emotions going off rail, we just do a little course correction and put some guardrails up.
Yes. And this segues perfectly into, I would imagine somebody might be going, how does confidence coach segue into, health habits, and you have so many health it's almost one of the same. And I think it would be fun to pull our listeners into, hey, if you've never really paid attention to your confidence level before, then you might be missing this huge piece of your health journey.
Yeah. So for me, when I think about confidence, I mean, there's so many definitions. I really like the simple explanation that confidence is the ability to truly believe that you can do whatever you say you're going to do. So if you're setting health goals and you're struggling with the consistency of them, that means there's a lack of belief somewhere. Because what I like to think about confidence and consistency and commitment are all intertwined. And we know that we get fitness results by being consistent. Track your food, move your body, know your numbers, make changes, be patient. It's boring. So consistency and commitment, people don't like, it's not sexy, but the results you get are sexy. They're wonderful. So we go, okay, but the reason we aren't consistent, when someone loses, you're super consistent, and then you lose the consistency because you got a micro loss that made you go, confidence is the ability to say, it's still working. This is normal. This is normal. And it's the ability to say, I am a person who sets goals and achieves them, whatever it takes. Yeah. That's confidence. I also like thinking about confidence through the lens of going, I know I have gifts, talents, purpose, things in my life that I haven't fully maximized. What would it look like for me to be an exponentially more impactful in my life with my health, my purpose? So like to have the confidence to think bigger than you ever even thought was possible for your health, your fitness, or your life. I think that takes the confidence to have big dreams is a starting point that we lose as kids.
Thank you again for highlighting this, for pointing this out, because I have a lot of moms, but grandmas too. Like my community is very much this 40 to 70s and sometimes older. Yeah. And there's so many times that we start to take ourselves out of the picture as we age. And you're giving so many amazing examples that, hey, we kind of get, we get better, we get wiser, we get harder, we've done it. And that the confidence piece is that we're allowed to keep wanting more. We can want to grow. One of my favorite things is to see other podcast hosts, other women starting their businesses in their 60s and even 70s. And you're like, cool. I can keep like wanting all of this. I don't know that those role models ahead of us, that's giving us that hope.
Kind of the swag in your sentence to be able to say, I'm just getting started. Oh, I'm 60. Yeah, I'm just getting started. Watch me. Right? Like just to be able to go. And I think there's confidence to fight off societal messaging. Oh, you're retired, or oh, you're 60, or oh, you're 50, or over the hill, or whatever. All the messaging about aging. I'm not on board. I am not on board that aging is bad. I think aging is a gift. And I think it is beautiful. I think the wisdom that we gain over the years, it serves massive purpose, but so many people shrink back because there's not enough women, especially leading. And so to have the confidence to say, I'm going to be a disruptor. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to start that dream. I'm going to, walk across America. I don't know what the dream is, but there's a dream, right? And to go, I want to be the person who says, I refuse to go by status quo. That I'm washed up, that I'm too old, that it's too late, that I woulda, coulda, shoulda. And that's just, it's also negative, and it's also small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're giving permission, and I hope everyone's hearing it in here. It's doing your own thing. Like to somebody, the swimming for however many hours is their goal, but to somebody else.
I was a swimmer in college, collegiate swimmer, no desire to do what she did. No desire to swim from Cuba to no desire. Right. So, right.
Don't need that checkbox.
Nope.
No. Yeah. No, agreed. And, to some people, it's the grandma who can sit on the floor cross-legged. I just had one of my clients say this. I sat for 2 hours and was making one of those tie blankets with her granddaughter. And she's like, and I was able to stand back up after those 2 hours.
Amazing.
She's flexible enough. Ooh, those quality of questions. I was curious if you could give some real client examples.
Well, I can tell you, I'll tell you a client example. I'll tell you first the question I wrote down for myself in my little journal yesterday. Speaking of Diana Nyad, so just in chicken scratch, just as a reminder to myself to come back. What have I given up on? What dream from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago have I given up on? And I just wrote in parentheses Nyad, so I would remember what I'm talking about. But also, I think the questions of what am I not thinking big enough about? What am I not seeing in myself? How am I also like to ask, and these are the questions my husband and I ask each other when we try to ask consistently, young children, life happens, but how can we make our marriage better? I think a lot of people think that, but are we actually asking our partners? And maybe you've been married 10 years, maybe 55 years, but I think that's a valid question to ask a couple times a year, our goal is every month. How can I be a better wife? How do you need me to show up more as a husband for you? How can we be better partners? What are we not displaying for our children that we want to be more intentional about? So I think those kinds of questions are really good. I'll share a client example. I have a client who's a dentist. She's shifting practices. She's currently in a pretty unhealthy practice, a lot of unmotivated people, just in an office that's a messy office. And I said, you're skilled. You are great, amazing personality, amazing bedside manner. What would your dream job be? And so we started exploring that. And then she found this great practice and interview process. And this was last week. And I said, all right, well, this place sounds amazing, but I still feel hesitation. And she's like, well, I don't like the location. It'd be a 45-minute drive. And I said, well, what would your dream location be? She said, an amazing dental practice that's like by a Starbucks. And I said, so go find that. I just said, what if that is there? And then we finished our session. She texted me later and she said, you will not believe it. Because I said, I believe there's something better for you. She lives in a major city. And I was like, look, this is for sure out there. Just, and she had some limiting beliefs about, and she had but I don't have this. And I had this experience. And then I don't have this on my resume yet. So even that kind of place wouldn't want me. And I said, but what if you're wrong? So that's a good question. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong about myself? And here's the great part of the story. So this is a week and a half has gone by. She texted me it was 2 nights ago. Not only does this place exist, she's already gone through 2 rounds of interviews. This guy is like, he has 575-star reviews on Google for a dental office. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know any place that has that. This guy is in his 70s, loves dentistry. Every employee that's been there has worked over 10 years there. So there's no turnover. And she just walked in because I had told her to, what if? And she just walked in to look at the place. And she happened to mention the front desk. Just they go, we are looking for an associate. She gets hired. She gets a contract. We talked about compensation plan, and she got a higher compensation plan than she even thought possible. 2 weeks ago, she thought that place doesn't exist. So it was the willingness to go, what if I'm wrong?
Great. And think about that, everybody. Like, if we're never asking ourselves questions like that, what are we leaving on the table that's out there for us?
Can I offer one other thing? When I ask myself a question where I'm not sure of the answer, even down to like how have I given up? What have I given up? What do I need to reawaken? What dream is still here that I took some micro losses and made them massive that I need to reevaluate? And when I don't have an answer to a simple question, what I do is either write the question on a piece of paper or I text it to myself if I'm going to walk with my phone, just the way it's written. And I have no music and I just walk. I walk the dog, I walk around, I look around, and I just keep asking myself the question. And sometimes I get an answer and sometimes I don't, but I sort of wrestle with it. And you kind of go, oh, you let your brain free think a little bit. It can just be a 10-minute walk. And then I come back. And usually if I do that once or twice, then I'll do, and then this like clarity will come and I'm like, oh, that's the obvious thing. So I just wanted to give also like, what does the process look like to ask yourself a micro question that can make a massive shift in your life? If the answer isn't directly obvious. Sometimes we know.
Right.
But sometimes we don't know. And that's okay. Be in that ambiguity. Wrestle with that. And then let your brain has the answers, but we often don't give it the space to think about it.
Right. Because it's a whisper. It's quiet. And man, movement. I love that you pointed out the walking, because there are so many times that I have felt so stuck and I walk and the answer appears. It is unbelievable how that
it's amazing.
Happen.
It's amazing.
It is.
Yes. Yep.
It is. Well, I feel like I need to ask you this. Did anything come from what did you give up? Your question? Any big goals or dreams?
I haven't yet. This is the walk journey today.
Okay.
So I wrote it down yesterday and I'm playing with it. I started thinking big stage speaking is kind of what but I have some fear to overcome, and I'm going to lean in it and choose to be courageous. Yeah.
It's so funny to hear you say you have fear around that. And I love when you do this in your podcast too, announce when this used to be a non-confident space and then you overcome it and you're pushing yourself there again, which is cool.
Yeah.
And hard. Trish, you are this perfect example of, and I want to really push this out again to the listeners. You have so much to offer, from hiring to free to, the podcast, all of that I just I want you to shout out all of your components for the person going,
oh, thank you.
I could really start working on my confidence. What are some good stepping stones into Trish Blackwell land?
I'm going to give you the stepping stones. Before that, one other definition of confidence I want to make sure we put out there, and what you just said about about me triggered this was in a good way. I think a lot of times we go, well, I don't need to work on my confidence. And I just believe everyone does. I want you to know my story of coming to being passionate about helping others with confidence came because my whole life have always looked and appeared from the outside as the most confident person in the room. I was the high achiever, super athlete, super student, should be confident, was confident. On the inside, a lot of drama. So please know that often the seemingly most confident people, confidence that's contingent on success and like things going perfectly. So that's where perfectionism comes in. And I know you're passionate about perfection, like anti-perfectionism. And I just think it's really interesting to know that when you realize every level of success requires a new level of confidence and courage, open that up, because I just want to take away any shame that people might feel of like going, if they ask themselves the question, do I want to work on my confidence? If your answer to that is yes, then you are in the 1% of high achievers who go, I see room for growth. This is wisdom. This is wise to work on. It's not a weakness. So wanted to put that. So to get into my role, some stepping stones of free resources I have, of course, if you're a podcast listener, the Confidence Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, you can check out trishblackwell.com. That's my main website. And then I have a coaching membership that's called College of Confidence. And it's a monthly, cancel at any time. We have members who come for a month or two, and we have members who've been with us for 7 years. And so it is a risk-free way to get in. What we do is we do live coaching every single week, twice a week, where it's following a theme. You get workbooks. We take what we talk about on the podcast and we put it really into like, let's make this real life, because the reality is that we all know a lot, but there's a big difference between knowledge and applied knowledge. And so that's a place where I go for that.
I've been in there and I loved it. And I love this opportunity to jump in, come out, like, because seasons of life
freedom
mess with us on confidence too. For that person who feels confident at the moment, I guarantee you've had a season of life where you haven't, and that we need that support system.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So we have a membership, we've got podcasts, you've got free resources. Do you do coursework as well?
Coursework all within the College of Confidence. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I'm just like forever encouraging. I think our listeners get settled in sometimes on great input, and then they'll walk away from this conversation and it's gone for a minute. So what are your favorite ways to always tell your listeners to keep this fresh of mind, to make sure that it not only impacts you today, but throughout the rest of your week?
My favorite method, and you're probably familiar with hearing me teach on this, is the 3-3-3 method. And the 3-3-3 method is something I teach people to do at the end of the day for 3 minutes. You write down 3 gratitudes, you write down 3 wins of the day, and then you write down 3 wins that you're going to have tomorrow. But if you want to be a learner, you want to elevate and really take your knowledge and apply it, I would encourage you to take the 3-3-3 method and say, what did I learn today? So I would add a 3. What are 3 gratitudes I have? What are 3 things I learned today that I want to remember? And look, it might be never take this road at 3 p.m. because there's too many school buses. That's a lesson. That's a good lesson to learn. So it can be like stuff like that. So it can be like real life stuff. Never use that dry cleaner. Good. Lesson learned is actually really good to give yourself a micro win. That's good knowledge, good feedback. Or I learned about this cool method called the 3-3-3 method on Lindsey's podcast today from this girl named Trish. Writing it down actually tells your brain this is important. It increases the likelihood of your brain doing it. But speaking of micro habits, there's one thing I forgot to say. Oh gosh, probably 15 minutes ago. The reason I really like saying, oh, I'll do that for 3 minutes, or I'll work on this task for 4 minutes, is that I found that even though I'm highly driven and I have high follow through and accountability, if I told myself I'm going to work on something for 10 minutes, my brain comes up with a reason not to do it. But if I say 8 minutes, it's feasible. I'm a linguist. I play with languages. I love French and Spanish and some Italian. And so I'll often say, oh, I'm going to work on Spanish vocabulary or conjugations for 10 minutes. I don't do it. But if I say, Trish, let's do 7 minutes of Spanish, I do it. You might not, everyone might be wired as me, but if you are you're wondering, why am I not committing to, I don't know, some specific very round number, play with it. Cut it off by 2 minutes and just see if that makes a difference.
Such good advice. And I think that some people can chalk that up and they'll be like, that's just brain games. If the brain games work.
For sure. I'm all about playing some brain games.
I know.
If brain games get you results and it makes it a little more fun and easy to do, I'm in.
I totally agree. I know what else I was thinking too. You have books out in the world.
I do.
That's another place for people to just put you on their shelf.
Funny that I don't say that. Yes, I do.
I'm going to remind you that you've written some books.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I do have one-on-one coaching. I have a coaching certification program as well. But I do have my most recent 2 books. One is called Insecurity Detox. You can get it anywhere books are sold. And then my most recent book that I published in 2020 is called Straighten Your Crown. It's a book about worthiness and understanding your true purpose.
How young? I'm a mom of daughters. I love putting things in my kids' rooms to just sit and look at them and
see if they'll pick it up.
What's the age group on, like, too young?
I would say because I've thought about this for my daughter who is 8. When will I allow her to read my books? Probably 16.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
Yeah, I would say 16 because there are core life trauma stuff. And she needs to be ready to understand that.
That's so
great
good.
question. No, that's a great question. What is next on if I'm going to answer a hard question, what have I put off or what is stirring in my heart that I haven't yet done? This is what's stirring 2 things, doing a podcast in French and then also writing a book on confidence for girls, for teenage girls.
Yes. Yeah, that would be beautiful. Or a whole nother podcast for
girls.
That age group. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's coming down the pipelines. Yeah.
Can you do that sooner than later?
I know. I was like, well, I know. Well, the problem is I need some firsthand experience. I got to let Ellie get a little older, but yes.
No.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
But I see the need. I can even see at the age of my daughter is that you just see personality shifting and oh my gosh, you're a kid again, experiencing it with them. I know you know even more than I know.
Yeah. And this is, talking through their sporting experiences, through their school, through their friends. That's where I'm like, I wish I had a Trish episode to be like, hey, go listen to this before you're allowed to come out of your room. You need to hear this today. Or put it on in the car. It's my favorite place to
I'm going to work on it. Yeah.
So I'll forever nudge you there. All right. I did this to you last time and I'm going to put you on the spot again today. I love to wrap up with it. If you could wrap your arms around my community, if they heard nothing else, what's one thing that you hope and pray that they heard out of you today?
Oh. My hope and prayer is that it's not too late. It's never too late to start and that they're further along than they think they are. I'm going to add a bonus. They've got more grit available to them than they think.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Right on that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for having me.